Taewon wiped the grease from his hands and stared at the notification on his tablet. The message glowed bright against the dim lighting of his workshop on the Seoul space station. He had been expecting this for weeks, ever since the government announced their ridiculous marriage lottery program. Every single person between 25 and 35 had to participate. No exceptions. He was 28 years old and perfectly happy being alone. His small apartment suited him fine. His job fixing cargo ship engines paid well enough. He had his routines, his favorite noodle shop on level 7, and his weekend games of online poker with friends back on Earth. A wife would complicate everything. But the government didn't care what he wanted. They said Earth's birth rate was too low. They said humanity needed to grow faster now that they were part of the Galactic Coalition. They said this lottery was for the good of the species. Taewon thought it was all nonsense, but he wasn't stupid enough to break the law. The application had been simple enough: name, age, occupation, preferences for a partner. That last part had annoyed him the most. What kind of preferences? He didn't have any. He had never really thought about marriage before. So when the form asked him to select qualities he wanted in a wife, he had just clicked boxes at random. Doesn't matter, he had thought. It's all bureaucratic garbage anyway. 3 weeks had passed since he submitted the application. He had almost forgotten about it entirely until today. Now this message sat on his screen, telling him his match had been found. Great. Just great. He would have to meet some woman he had never seen before and pretend to be interested in building a life together. Taewon pressed the button to open the full message. His eyes scanned the text quickly. Congratulations. Match confirmed. Report to Diplomatic Center 7 tomorrow at 9 in the morning. Wait. Diplomatic Center? That was strange. The lottery matches were supposed to report to the Civil Registry Office on Level 3. Why would he need to go to the diplomatic sector? Before he could think about it further, his door chimed. That was unusual. Nobody visited him except his supervisor, and only when there was urgent work. Taewon set down his tablet and walked to the door. When it slid open, 3 people in government uniforms stood in the corridor. 2 men and 1 woman, all wearing the dark blue of Earth's Galactic Affairs Department. Taewon? The woman asked. She looked nervous. Yes, that's me. What's this about? We need you to come with us, please. It's about your lottery match. Taewon frowned. I got the message. I'm supposed to report tomorrow morning. Plans have changed, one of the men said quickly. We need you to come now. Tonight. This was getting stranger by the minute. Taewon crossed his arms. Why? What's going on? The woman glanced at her colleagues before speaking. There's been a situation, a complication with your match. We can't discuss it here. Please, it's very important that you come with us right away. Taewon didn't like this at all. But these were government officials, and he had learned long ago that arguing with bureaucrats never ended well. He grabbed his jacket and followed them into the corridor. They walked quickly through the station, taking routes that avoided the busy public areas. Taewon noticed the woman kept checking her communication device nervously. They arrived at a section of the station he had never been to before. High security, heavy doors, armed guards at every checkpoint. The diplomatic sector. As they passed through the 3rd security scan, Taewon's stomach began to twist with worry. This wasn't normal. This wasn't anything close to normal. Finally, they reached a private conference room. The woman gestured for him to enter. Please wait here. Someone will be with you shortly to explain everything. The door closed behind him, leaving Taewon alone in a room that was far too fancy for a mechanic. Soft chairs, a table made of real wood, and a window showing the curve of Earth below. He sat down and waited. And waited. 20 minutes passed. Then 30. Just when he was about to get up and demand answers, the door opened. An older man in an expensive suit walked in, followed by 2 more officials. The man's face was serious, and he carried himself like someone important. He sat down across from Taewon without introducing himself. Mr. Taiwan, we have a problem, the man said. I gathered that much from the security escort, Taiwan replied. Your lottery match. There was an error in the system, a very significant error. Taiwan leaned forward. What kind of error? The man took a deep breath. 3 months ago, we opened our lottery database to interface with Galactic systems as part of a cultural exchange program. It was supposed to only share general data, nothing personal. But there was a coding mistake. Our system accidentally pulled profiles from an alien database and mixed them into our lottery pool. Taiwan felt his blood run cold. You're saying I was matched with an alien? Not just any alien, the man said quietly. You were matched with Princess Hanariel of the Valoran Empire. The room seemed to tilt sideways. Taiwan gripped the edge of the table. A princess? An alien princess? Yes. The Valorans are one of the most powerful civilizations in the Galactic Coalition, and their royal family takes marriage contracts very seriously. Once their matching system confirms a pairing, it cannot be broken for 1 full galactic year. Our system interfaced with theirs and confirmed your match before anyone realized the mistake. Taiwan stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. Then unmatch us. Tell them it was an error. We tried, the man said, and now he looked genuinely afraid. The Valoran Emperor says that breaking the match would be an insult to his daughter and a violation of their sacred laws. If we refuse to honor it, there could be serious diplomatic consequences, perhaps even military ones. You're insane, Taiwan said flatly. You made a mistake with your computer system and now you want me to marry an alien princess to avoid a war? We're asking you to agree to a 1-year ceremonial union. After that time, the contract expires naturally under Valoran law. No one has to stay married permanently, just 1 year. Please, Mr. Taiwan, you would be preventing a conflict that could harm millions of people. Taiwan walked to the window and stared out at Earth. His simple life had just become impossibly complicated. A princess, an alien, 1 year. He thought about wars and diplomatic incidents and all those big words that politicians used. Then he thought about his small apartment and his engine repairs and his noodle shop on level 7. Finally, he turned back to the officials. When do I meet her? Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. Taiwan nodded slowly. Fine, 1 year. But after that, I want my life back. The relief on their faces was almost comical. Almost. Taiwan didn't feel like laughing. Taiwan didn't sleep that night. He lay in his small bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to understand how his life had become so strange. An alien princess. He kept repeating those words in his mind, but they still didn't make sense. He had never even met an alien before, except for passing them in the station corridors. Now he was supposed to marry one. Morning came too quickly. The same government officials arrived at his door at 8 o'clock sharp. They had brought him new clothes to wear, expensive clothes, the kind he would never buy for himself. A dark suit that fit perfectly, even though nobody had measured him. They must have scanned his body somehow. The thought made him uncomfortable. The woman from yesterday helped him fix his collar. Try to stay calm, she said quietly. Princess Hana is very understanding. This situation is difficult for her too. Does she know it was a mistake? Taiwan asked. Yes, she knows everything. That made him feel slightly better. At least she wasn't expecting some romantic fairy tale. They rode an elevator to the highest level of the diplomatic sector, where the most important visitors stayed. Guards stood at attention every few meters. Taiwan had never been around so much security in his life. It made his skin itch. They stopped in front of a large door made of some material that shimmered like water. One of the officials pressed his hand against a panel, and the door slid open silently. We'll wait outside, the woman said. Take your time. Taewon stepped through the door into a room that looked nothing like the rest of the space station. Plants he had never seen before grew in decorative pots. The walls seemed to glow with a soft blue light. Furniture made of strange materials stood arranged in patterns he didn't recognize. This was a Velaran room, he realized, designed to make the princess feel at home. Then he saw her. She stood by the window, looking out at the stars. She was tall, taller than him by at least 10 centimeters. Her skin was blue, a deep shade like the ocean in pictures he had seen of Earth. Silver markings covered her arms and neck in patterns that seemed to move when she breathed. Her hair was long and white, pulled back from her face. She wore a dress made of fabric that changed colors as she turned toward him. Her eyes met his. They were completely black, without any white parts at all. Taewon had to force himself not to step backward. "You must be Taewon," she said. Her voice was smooth and clear, speaking perfect Korean. A small device on her collar must be translating for her. "Yes," he managed to say. "And you're Princess Hana." "Just Hana." "Please," she gestured to a chair. "Will you sit? I think we should talk." He sat down carefully. The chair adjusted itself to his body, which startled him. Hana sat across from him, her posture perfect and straight. She looked like someone who had been trained her entire life to sit in exactly that way. "I want you to know that I understand this is not your fault," Hana said. "The error in the system was not something you caused or wanted." "It wasn't your fault either," Taewon replied. "No. But I am bound by my people's laws. Once the matching system confirmed our pairing, the contract became sacred. I cannot break it without bringing shame to my family and my empire. They told me it would cause a diplomatic problem, maybe even a war." Hana's expression darkened. "My father, the emperor, takes these matters very seriously. He would see a broken match as an insult to Valoran honor, and yes, he might respond with force. I have tried to convince him otherwise, but he will not hear me." Taewon rubbed his face with both hands. "So we're both trapped. For 1 year, yes. After that, the contract expires naturally. We can part ways and return to our normal lives." "1 year," Taewon repeated. "What exactly does this marriage mean? Do we have to live together? Act like a real couple? According to Velaran law, we must maintain the appearance of a genuine union. We should live in the same dwelling. We should be seen together in public occasionally. But beyond that," she paused, choosing her words carefully. "Beyond that, what we do in private is our own business. I do not expect romance from you, Taewon. I do not expect love. I only ask that you help me fulfill the requirements of the law." He studied her face. She looked tired, he realized. Those black eyes held sadness in them. She was as much a prisoner of this situation as he was. Maybe more so, because her whole family and empire were watching her. "Okay," he said finally. 1 year. We'll make it work somehow." Relief flickered across her face. "Thank you. I know this is asking a great deal from you." "You didn't ask. Neither of us did. We're just trying to survive a bad situation." Over the next hour, they discussed the practical details. There would be a small ceremony in 3 days, just enough to make the marriage official under both Earth and Valoran law. Hana would move into his apartment rather than staying in the diplomatic quarters. She wanted to avoid media attention as much as possible. Taewon almost laughed at that. His tiny apartment and a princess? That would be interesting. "You should know," Hana said as he was preparing to leave, "that not everyone in my empire is happy about this match. Some see humans as inferior beings. They think I have disgraced the royal family by being paired with someone from your species." "That's cheerful," Taewon muttered. "I tell you this because there may be danger. My personal guard, Dae-hyun, will be nearby at all times. He is human, actually. He joined the Velaran military many years ago. He will help protect both of us if needed." "Great. So I need to worry about alien assassins now, too. Hana almost smiled. Just a tiny movement at the corner of her mouth, but it was there. I know this is overwhelming, but I promise I will do everything I can to make this year bearable for you. You are helping to prevent a war. That is no small thing. Tae-wan stood up to leave. At the door, he turned back. Can I ask you something? Of course. Why were you in Earth's system at all? How did your profile get mixed in? I was visiting Earth 3 months ago as part of a diplomatic tour. They asked me to fill out some cultural survey forms. I thought it was just research. I had no idea those forms would be fed into your marriage lottery system. So, you filled out the same kind of form I did? With all those questions about preferences? Yes. Why do you ask? Tae-wan shook his head. No reason. Just funny how things work out sometimes. He left the room and rode the elevator back down to his level. The officials had disappeared, leaving him alone with his thoughts. In 3 days, he would be married to an alien princess. In 3 days, his simple life would become something he couldn't even imagine. When he reached his apartment, he looked around at his small space. 1 bedroom, a kitchen area that barely deserved the name, a bathroom with a shower that only worked on odd-numbered days. Where was a princess supposed to fit in all this? He sat down on his bed and laughed, not because anything was funny, but because sometimes, when life became too strange to understand, laughing was all you could do. The ceremony was small and strange. Tae-wan wore the same expensive suit they had given him. Hana wore a dress that seemed to be made of liquid silver. A Velaran priest said words in a language that sounded like music. An Earth official read legal statements in a bored voice. Tae-wan and Hana both signed documents. Then it was done. They were married. The media wanted pictures and interviews, but Hana's guards blocked them. Within an hour, Tae-wan and his new wife were standing in his apartment, staring at each other in awkward silence. It's small, Tae-wan said, stating the obvious. It's fine, Hana replied, but her eyes told a different story as she looked around the cramped space. She had probably lived in rooms bigger than his entire apartment her whole life. Her belongings arrived an hour later. Boxes and cases carried by security personnel who looked uncomfortable in the narrow corridor. Tae-wan helped bring everything inside, stacking containers wherever he could find space. When the guards finally left, the apartment felt even smaller with all of Hana's things filling it. I can take the couch, Tae-wan offered, pointing at his worn sofa. You should have the bedroom. We can alternate, Hana said. That seems fair. You're a princess. I'm not letting you sleep on my terrible couch. I am not going to take your bed every night for a year. They stared at each other. This was their first disagreement as a married couple. Somehow, Tae-wan had expected the first fight would be about something more important than sleeping arrangements. Fine, he said. We'll alternate, but don't complain when your back hurts. The first week was difficult. Their daily routines crashed into each other constantly. Tae-wan woke up at 6 in the morning for work. Hana meditated from 5 to 7 and didn't like being disturbed. Tae-wan ate whatever was quick and easy. Hana prepared elaborate meals using ingredients he couldn't pronounce. He liked the apartment warm. She preferred it cold enough to make his breath visible. Small things became big problems. Tae-wan left his tools scattered around the living area. Hana organized everything into precise patterns that he immediately destroyed by accident. He watched sports on the screen late at night. She needed silence to study the diplomatic reports she received daily. He spoke loudly during calls with friends. She whispered even during normal conversation. Could you please not leave your boots in the middle of the floor? Hana asked on the 4th day, her voice tight with frustration. Could you please not rearrange my stuff without asking? Tae-wan shot back. They stood on opposite sides of the apartment, both breathing hard. Then Hana closed her eyes and took a long breath. I apologize, she said carefully. I am used to having servants maintain order. I should not expect you to live by my standards. Tae-Wan felt his anger drain away. No, I'm sorry too. I'm used to living alone. I'm not good at sharing space. Neither of us is good at this. No, we're really not. The second week was slightly better. They learned each other's patterns and started avoiding the worst conflicts. Tae-Wan began waking up earlier so his morning routine wouldn't interrupt her meditation. Hana used headphones when she needed to make calls. Small adjustments that made coexistence possible, if not comfortable. Dae-hyun, Hana's guard, visited every day to check on her safety. He was a middle-aged Korean man with scars on his face and a military bearing. But he was also kind and patient. He helped translate some of the cultural differences that Tae-Wan and Hana struggled to understand. She's not trying to control you when she organizes your tools, Dae-hyun explained one afternoon while Hana was out meeting with diplomats. Valoran culture values order very highly. It's not personal. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful when I leave things around, Tae-Wan said. I just forget. I know. I've lived with Valorans for 15 years. It takes time to adjust. Why did you join their military? Tae-Wan asked, curious. Dae-hyun smiled slightly. That's a long story. The short version is they saved my life during a colony raid. I owed them a debt. Now I serve the royal family. Do you regret it? Sometimes, but mostly no. They treat me with honor. That's more than I had on Earth. One evening during the third week, something changed. Tae-Wan came home from work exhausted and frustrated. A repair job had gone wrong, and his supervisor had blamed him for someone else's mistake. He threw his jacket on the floor and collapsed on the couch without saying hello. Hana emerged from the bedroom where she had been reading. Bad day? The worst. She sat down on the other end of the couch. For a moment, she didn't speak. Then she said, Tell me about it? So he did. He explained about the broken engine, the unfair blame, the way his supervisor always picked on him because he was just a mechanic and not someone important. He talked for 10 minutes straight and Hana just listened. When he finished, she nodded slowly. My brother does the same thing to me. He blames me when things go wrong in the Empire, even when I had nothing to do with them. It's frustrating to be powerless against unfair accusations. You have a brother? 2 brothers and a sister. I'm the second youngest. My older brother thinks I'm too soft. My younger sister thinks I'm too serious. Are they right? Probably a little of both. Tae-Wan found himself smiling. I had a sister once. She died in the colony wars. She used to tell me I was too lazy. Was she right? Definitely. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Outside the window, stars moved slowly past as the station orbited Earth. Tae-Wan realized this was the first real conversation they'd had since the wedding. Everything else had been about schedules and rules and practical matters. This was different. This was just 2 people talking. I should fix your translator, Tae-Wan said suddenly. I noticed it's been glitching. Sometimes you pause mid-sentence like it's lagging. You can fix it? Probably. I fix engines, but translators use similar technology. If you trust me not to break it worse. Hana unhooked the device from her collar and handed it to him. I trust you. Those 3 words felt significant somehow. Tae-Wan took the translator to his workbench in the corner. He opened it carefully and examined the circuits inside. The problem was obvious. A loose connection. 5 minutes of work, and it was fixed. He handed it back to her. She reattached it and spoke a few words in her own language. The translator responded instantly, with no lag. Perfect, she said, looking genuinely pleased. Thank you. No problem. Can I help you with something in return? I feel I should contribute more to our household. Tae-Wan thought about it. There's a manual I need to read for work. It's written in Galactic Standard, and I only understand about half of it. Could you help translate the difficult parts? Of course. Bring it here. They spent the next hour working together. Hana explained the complex technical terms while Taiwan took notes. She was patient when he didn't understand something, breaking down concepts into simpler words. He found himself appreciating how smart she was, not just educated, but genuinely intelligent in ways that had nothing to do with being royal. When they finished, it was late. Taiwan's turn to take the bedroom. Before he went to sleep, he turned back to Hana. "This isn't as terrible as I thought it would be," he said. She smiled. A real smile this time, not the polite diplomatic kind. "No, it's not terrible at all." Life settled into a rhythm over the next few weeks. Taiwan went to work each morning while Hana handled her diplomatic duties. They ate dinner together most evenings, sharing stories about their days. The awkwardness faded slowly, replaced by something that felt almost like friendship, almost like they were a real couple instead of two strangers bound by a computer error. But the galaxy beyond their small apartment hadn't forgotten about them. News of the marriage had spread across dozens of star systems. Some species saw it as a beautiful symbol of unity, others saw it as an abomination, and a few saw it as an opportunity. On a Tuesday afternoon during their second month together, Hana asked Taiwan to go with her to the station's market district. She wanted to buy fresh food instead of the preserved meals she usually prepared. Dae-hyun came with them, walking a few steps behind as always, his eyes constantly scanning for threats. The market was crowded with people from Earth and visitors from other worlds. Taiwan had been coming here since he first arrived on the station, but seeing it through Hana's eyes made it feel new again. She stopped at every stall, fascinated by foods and goods she had never encountered before. She bought strange fruits and asked vendors 100 questions about where things came from. "You're like a tourist," Taiwan said, amused. "I am a tourist," she replied. "I've been to dozens of worlds, but always in official capacity, always guarded and rushed. This is the first time I've walked freely in a market. Doesn't feel very free with Dae-hyun following us. More free than you know." They were examining some vegetables at a stall when Dae-hyun suddenly tensed. Taiwan saw it in his peripheral vision. The guard's hand moved toward the weapon at his hip. Before Taiwan could ask what was wrong, someone shouted in a language he didn't understand. 3 figures pushed through the crowd toward them. They wore dark clothes with hoods covering their faces. Even without seeing their features, Taiwan could tell they weren't human. They moved too quickly, too smoothly. One of them raised an arm, and Taiwan saw a weapon clutched in its hand. Everything happened at once. Dae-hyun threw himself between Hana and the attackers. Energy blasts lit up the market bright and hot. People screamed and ran in all directions. Hana moved faster than Taiwan would have thought possible, her diplomatic dress somehow not hindering her at all. She struck one attacker with her fist, and the figure crumpled to the ground. But there were 3 of them, and only one of her. Dae-hyun was fighting the second attacker, locked in close combat. The third raised its weapon toward Hana's back. She didn't see it coming. Taiwan's body moved before his brain could catch up. He had never been a fighter, never been brave, never been anything special. But in that moment, watching someone aim a weapon at Hana, something primal took over. He couldn't fight the attacker. But he knew this station better than anyone. He had worked on every level, in every corner, fixing systems that most people never saw. He knew exactly where they were standing, and he knew what was beneath their feet. Taiwan slammed his hand against the emergency panel on the wall behind him. Emergency bulkhead seals were designed to contain fires or hull breaches. They dropped heavy barriers that could stop almost anything, including assassins. The bulkhead above them responded instantly to the emergency signal. A massive metal barrier fell from the ceiling with a grinding roar. It crashed down between them and the attackers, cutting the market area in half. The third assassin's weapon fired, but the shot hit the barrier instead of Hana. On their side of the barrier, it was suddenly quiet. On the other side, Taewon could hear the attackers trying to break through, but bulkhead doors were designed to withstand explosive decompression. 3 aliens with hand weapons wouldn't be getting through anytime soon. Station security would be here in minutes. The attackers knew it too. Taewon heard them running away, their footsteps fading into the distance. Dae-hyun rushed to the control panel and sealed the barrier fully, then turned to check on Hana. She was standing perfectly still, her chest rising and falling rapidly. Her silver markings were glowing brighter than Taewon had ever seen them. When she looked at him, her black eyes were wide. "You saved my life," she said quietly. "I just pressed a button," Taewon replied. His hands were shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. "Anyone could have done it. But you did it. You thought of it while everyone else was running or fighting." Security arrived then, armed and alert. Dae-hyun spent 20 minutes explaining what had happened. The one attacker Hana had knocked unconscious was taken into custody. Medical teams checked everyone for injuries. Gradually, the market area was cleared and the barrier lifted. Taewon and Hana sat in a security office for hours, giving statements and answering questions. The attacker, they learned, was Valoran, part of a radical group that believed aliens and Valorans should never mix. They saw Hana's marriage as a betrayal of their entire species. "This is my fault," Hana said, as they finally returned to their apartment late that night. "I brought this danger to you." "Stop that," Taewon said. "Crazy people are going to be crazy. You didn't make them attack us." "But if we weren't married, you'd still be a princess and there would still be people who hated you for political reasons. At least this way, you have someone watching your back who knows where all the emergency buttons are." She almost smiled at that. Almost. But her eyes were still sad. She sat down on the couch and stared at the floor. Taewon sat beside her, not sure what to say. They had been attacked. People had tried to kill her and him by association. That wasn't something you just got over. "I was terrified," Hana said after a long silence. "Not of dying. I've been trained to face death since I was a child. But I was terrified that they would hurt you. And I realized something while I was fighting." "What?" "I realized that I care what happens to you. Not because of the contract or the diplomatic situation, but because you're you. Because you fixed my translator and helped me read reports and taught me about instant noodles. Because you're kind and patient and funny. And that terrifies me more than the assassins did." Taewon felt his heart beating faster. "Why does that terrify you?" "Because we have less than 10 months left on this contract. Because then I'll have to return to my empire and you'll return to your life. Because caring about you makes the ending hurt already." He wanted to say something comforting, something wise. But he wasn't good with words. So instead he reached out and took her hand. Her skin was cool against his, and the silver markings on her arm glowed slightly brighter at his touch. "Then let's not think about the ending yet," he said. "Let's just be glad we're both alive right now." She squeezed his hand. "Yes, let's do that." They sat together on the couch for a long time, not talking, just being present with each other. Outside the window, stars continued their eternal dance. Inside the apartment, something had changed between them, something that couldn't be put back the way it was. Taewon realized he was terrified too, because somewhere in the past 2 months, Hana had stopped being the alien princess he was forced to marry. She had become someone important, someone he would miss when she was gone. And that changed everything. The assassination attempt changed things between them. Before, they had been 2 people sharing space. After, they became 2 people who had survived something together. That created a bond that neither of them had expected. Security around them increased dramatically. Dae-hyun now had 3 additional guards helping him. They couldn't go anywhere without an armed escort. The freedom they had been starting to enjoy was gone, replaced by constant surveillance and protection. It should have felt suffocating. Somehow, it brought them closer instead. They spent more time in the apartment together, and those hours became less about avoiding each other and more about seeking each other out. Hana taught Tae-Wan about Valoran history, telling him stories about her home world and the ancient wars that had shaped her empire. Tae-Wan taught her about human culture, showing her old movies and explaining jokes that the translator couldn't quite capture. "Wait, why is that funny?" Hana asked during a comedy film he had loved since childhood. "The man just fell down. It's the way he fell, and the timing. And the expression on his face right before. Human humor is very strange. Valoran humor is stranger. You told me a joke last week, and I still don't understand why it's supposed to be funny. Because the fish is a metaphor for political corruption. It's a fish. It's a metaphor." They argued about it for 10 minutes, both smiling the entire time. These were the moments Tae-Wan treasured most, when they could just be two people talking about nothing important, when her status and his ordinariness didn't matter. He learned things about her that surprised him. Despite being raised in a palace, she had never learned to cook until coming to Earth. Her meals had always been prepared by servants. Now she was teaching herself using videos from the station's network, and she took pride in every dish she managed not to burn. "Try this," she said one evening, presenting him with something that looked vaguely like soup. Tae-Wan tasted it carefully. It was actually good. "This is great. What is it?" "I don't know the human name. It's a traditional Valoran dish my mother used to eat. I've been trying to recreate it from memory." "Your mother must be a good cook." "She was. She died when I was 12. Tae-Wan set down his spoon. "I'm sorry. I didn't know." "It's all right. It was a long time ago. But I miss her, especially now. She would have liked you, I think." "Why?" "Because you're honest. You don't pretend to be something you're not. She valued that in people." He showed her things about his life, too. The simple pleasures he had enjoyed before she arrived. His favorite noodle shop on level 7, run by an old woman named Mrs. Pack, who had known him since he first came to the station. The observation deck where he used to go when he needed to think. The small garden area that few people knew about, hidden behind maintenance tunnels. "This is beautiful," Hana said when he brought her to the garden. She touched the leaves of earth plants growing under artificial sunlight. "I had no idea this was here." "Most people don't. The station workers maintain it, but hardly anyone visits. I come here when I need quiet." "Thank you for sharing it with me." "You're welcome." They started eating meals together every evening, regardless of their schedules. It became a ritual, a time when they could disconnect from the pressures of their unusual situation and just talk. Hana told him about the burdens of being royal, the expectations and responsibilities that had defined her entire life, how she had never been allowed to choose anything for herself until now. Tae-Wan told her about growing up poor, about losing his family in the colony wars, about choosing a simple life because complicated ones had only brought him pain, how he had convinced himself that being alone was safer than caring about people. "But you care about me now," Hana said one night. It wasn't a question. "Yes," Tae-Wan admitted. "I do. I care about you too." The words hung in the air between them. Neither of them said anything more. They didn't need to. The truth was obvious to both of them now. This marriage that had started as a bureaucratic accident had become something real. 4 months into their contract, they were asked to appear at a major galactic summit. Representatives from dozens of species would be there, and the organizers wanted Tae-Wan and Hana to speak about their marriage as an example of interspecies cooperation. Hana accepted the invitation before Tae-Wan could refuse. "I hate public speaking," he protested. "I know, but this is important. We need to show that our marriage means something." It does mean something. To us. Why do we have to perform it for strangers? Because perception matters in politics. Our marriage can be a symbol of hope, or it can be seen as a failure. We get to choose which one. The summit was held on a massive ship orbiting Mars. Taiwan had never been anywhere so grand. Diplomats and leaders from across the galaxy filled enormous halls. Everyone was dressed in expensive clothes and speaking in formal tones. He felt completely out of place in the suit they had given him. Hana, by contrast, was perfectly at home. This was her world. She moved through the crowds with grace, greeting important figures with the right words and gestures. But every few minutes, she would look back to make sure Taiwan was still with her. That small gesture meant everything to him. When it was time for them to speak, Taiwan stood at the podium with his heart pounding. Thousands of beings were watching. Hana had prepared remarks for him, formal words about unity and cooperation. He had memorized them, but when he opened his mouth, different words came out. "I'm not a diplomat," he said, his voice rough. "I'm just a mechanic. I fix broken things for a living. A few months ago, my government told me I had to marry someone I'd never met. I was angry about it. I felt like my life was being taken away from me." The audience was silent. Hana watched him with wide eyes. "Then I met my wife," Taiwan continued, "and she's the most remarkable person I've ever known. She's patient when I'm difficult. She's kind when I'm grumpy. She's smart about things I'll never understand. She's brave in ways I'll never be. And yes, she's alien. Her skin is blue. Her eyes are black. She comes from a world I've never seen." He paused, gathering his courage. "But none of that matters. Because when I look at her, I just see Hana. I see someone who makes me laugh. Someone who challenges me to be better. Someone who I care about more than I ever thought I could care about anyone. We come from different worlds, literally, but we found common ground. And if we can do that, maybe everyone can." He stepped away from the podium. The hall erupted in applause. But Taiwan wasn't paying attention to any of it. He was looking at Hana, and she was looking back at him with tears running down her blue cheeks. Later, in their private quarters on the ship, she held his hands and smiled at him. "That was the most beautiful thing anyone has ever said about me. I meant every word." "I know you did. That's why it was beautiful." She kissed him then. Her first kiss ever, she told him later. His first kiss in years. It was awkward and uncertain and perfect. Time moved differently after the summit. Days that used to drag now flew past. Taiwan and Hana had 10 weeks left on their contract. Then 8 weeks. Then 6. Every morning, Taiwan woke up and counted the remaining days, and every morning the number felt smaller than it should. They didn't talk about what would happen when the year ended. It was an unspoken agreement between them. They lived in the present, enjoying the time they had, pretending that an ending wasn't approaching like a wave they couldn't stop. But the silence around the subject grew heavier as the weeks passed. Hana received messages from her home world daily. Her father wanted updates. Her siblings asked when she would return. Her advisors sent reports about political matters that needed her attention. She always read them alone, and afterward her mood would be darker for hours. Taiwan pretended not to notice. He went to work, fixed engines, came home. They cooked dinner together. They watched movies. They talked about everything except the future. It felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, knowing you had to step off eventually, but trying not to look down. When they had 5 weeks remaining, Dae-hyun came to visit with an expression Taiwan had never seen before. Serious, almost sad. "Princess Hana," he said formally, "your father has sent an urgent summons. You are required to return to the Valoran homeworld immediately." The color drained from Hana's face. Even her silver markings seemed to dim. "Why? What's happened?" "Political matters that require your presence." He didn't give details. Can it wait until the contract expires? He said immediately. Hana looked at Tae-wan. He saw panic in her eyes and something else, something like grief. I have to go, she said quietly. If I refuse, it will cause problems for both our worlds. I know, Tae-wan said, though his chest felt tight. When do you leave? Tomorrow. One word. Tomorrow. After all the weeks of pretending they had more time, suddenly they had none. That night, they lay in bed together. They had started sharing the bedroom weeks ago, both of them tired of the uncomfortable couch. Now Tae-wan held Hana close, memorizing the feel of her cool skin against his, the way her hair smelled like something he couldn't name, the rhythm of her breathing. I don't want to go, she whispered. Then don't. It's not that simple. It could be. You could just stay and cause a diplomatic crisis, damage relations between our peoples, disappoint my father. Would that be worse than being unhappy for the rest of your life? She turned to face him. In the darkness, her black eyes reflected no light. I don't know. I've never been allowed to choose my own happiness before. I don't know if I'm brave enough to start now. You're the bravest person I know. No, you are. You're brave because you choose to care about people even though you've been hurt before. You choose to be open, even though it's easier to stay closed. I've never done that. I've never chosen anything difficult. You chose to make this marriage work. That was difficult. That was survival. This is different. They didn't sleep that night. They talked until dawn, saying all the things they had avoided saying for weeks. Hana told him she loved him, and Tae-wan told her the same. They made promises they both knew might be impossible to keep. They pretended that tomorrow wasn't coming. But it came anyway. The docking bay was cold and sterile. A Velaran ship waited to take Hana home. Her guards had already loaded her belongings. Only Dae-hyun remained, giving them a few final minutes of privacy. 5 weeks, Tae-wan said. We still have 5 weeks on the contract. I know. My father knows too. He's offering me a choice when I arrive. What choice? Stay with you and lose everything. My title, my position, my family, or come home and marry a Velaran noble. Secure important political alliances. Do my duty to the Empire. Tae-wan felt like he'd been hit in the stomach. He's forcing you to choose. Yes. Between me and your entire life. Yes. That's not a choice. That's cruelty. Hana touched his face with her hand. I need you to know something. Whatever I decide, it won't be because I don't love you. It will be because I love my people too. Because I was raised to put duty before desire. I know that's not fair to you. I know you deserve better. I don't want better. I want you. I know. Tears ran down her face. I want you too. But sometimes wanting isn't enough. Dae-hyun approached. Princess, it's time. She kissed Tae-wan one last time. Then she walked toward the ship without looking back. He understood why. Looking back would have made it harder. Maybe impossible. The ship's doors closed. The vessel detached from the station and moved away into space. Tae-wan stood in the docking bay and watched until he couldn't see it anymore. Then he stood there longer, staring at empty space where it had been. He went back to his apartment. It felt enormous now without her things filling it. He sat on the couch and looked around at the empty rooms. For 5 months, this small space had been their whole world. Now it was just his again, just like before. Except it wasn't like before. Before, he had been content with his simple life. Before, being alone had felt safe. Now, it just felt lonely. 3 days passed. Tae-wan went to work but couldn't focus. He came home but couldn't sleep. He existed but didn't feel alive. The apartment was too quiet. The bed was too empty. Everything reminded him of her. On the 4th day, he received a message, not from Hana, but from Dae-hyun. The message was simple. The Emperor wishes to speak with you. Accept the call?" Taewan's hands shook as he pressed the button. A hologram appeared in his living room. An older Velaran male with silver markings that covered his entire body. The Emperor looked stern and powerful and completely terrifying. "You are Taewan," the Emperor said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, Your Majesty. My daughter tells me she loves you." Taewan didn't know what to say to that. "I investigated you," the Emperor continued. "A simple mechanic. No wealth, no status, no achievements of note. On paper, you are completely unsuitable for a princess of the Valoran Empire." "I know. But my daughter fought with me for 2 days about this marriage. She refused to consider the Valoran noble I had chosen for her. She said she would rather lose everything than lose you. Do you understand what that means?" "I think so." "No, you don't. My daughter has never defied me before. Not once in her entire life. She has always done her duty without complaint, but now she is willing to sacrifice everything for a human mechanic." "That tells me something important." "What does it tell you?" "That you are worth more than what appears on paper. That you have given my daughter something she never had before. Choice, freedom, love without conditions. The assassination attempt could have killed her, but instead of running away, you protected her. You stayed with her. You saw her as Hana first and Princess second." The Emperor paused, studying Taewan through the hologram. "I am giving you my blessing," he said finally. "If Hana chooses to return to you, she will not lose her title or her position. She will not be cast out of the royal family. I will find other ways to secure the political alliances I need, but I will not force her to marry someone she does not love." Taewan couldn't breathe. "You're giving her a real choice." "Yes, but I am also giving you a choice. If you truly love my daughter, you must understand what you are asking her to give up. Her life will be complicated, divided between 2 worlds. She will face criticism from those who think humans are inferior. She will have responsibilities that will take her away from you. It will not be easy. Love isn't supposed to be easy. No, but it should be worth the difficulty. Can you promise me that you will make my daughter happy?" "I can promise I'll try every day for the rest of my life." The Emperor smiled slightly. It transformed his stern face into something almost gentle. "That is all any father can ask. She will return to you in 3 days. Use that time wisely." Taewan spent 3 days cleaning the apartment until it shone. He fixed everything that had been broken. He bought fresh flowers from the market, even though he had no idea if Velarans liked flowers. He cooked food and threw it away when it wasn't good enough. He tried on different clothes, wanting to look right but not knowing what right was. By the 3rd day, he was exhausted and nervous and more alive than he had felt since she left. Dae-hyun had sent him the arrival time, 6 in the evening. Taewan stood in the docking bay an hour early, pacing back and forth until the guards watching him probably thought he was crazy. When the ship finally arrived, his heart was beating so hard it hurt. The doors opened. Hana stepped out, wearing a simple dress instead of her royal clothes. She looked around the docking bay until her eyes found him. Then she smiled, and Taewan remembered how to breathe. She walked toward him slowly. When she reached him, she stopped. Neither of them spoke for a long moment. "You came back," Taewan said finally. "Did you think I wouldn't?" "I was afraid you might choose the easier path." "The easier path would have been marrying someone chosen for me and living a comfortable, empty life. That's what I've always done. But you taught me something important." "What?" "That easy isn't the same as right. That comfort isn't the same as happiness. That being brave means choosing what you want even when it's difficult." She took his hands in hers. "My father gave me his blessing," she continued. "I can keep my title and my position. But more importantly, I can keep you. If you still want me. If I still want you? Hana, I've wanted nothing else since the moment you walked onto that ship. Then I have a question to ask you. And this time it's my choice to ask. Not a bureaucratic error, not a political arrangement. My choice. She knelt down on one knee. Taewan's breath caught. This wasn't how humans proposed, but it was clearly how Velerans did. Several people in the docking bay stopped to watch. Taewan, will you stay married to me? Not because a contract says you have to, not because governments need you to, but because you want to, because you love me the way I love you. Will you share your life with me, knowing it will be complicated and difficult and sometimes impossible? He pulled her to her feet. Yes, to all of it. Yes. She kissed him, and the people watching applauded. Taewan didn't care about any of them. He only cared about the woman in his arms who had traveled across the galaxy to be with him. They walked back to the apartment hand in hand. Everything looked the same, but felt different. This was their home now. Not a temporary arrangement. Not a place they were forced to share. Their home, chosen freely. I have something to tell you, Hana said as they settled onto the couch. My father wants me to become an official ambassador for human-Veleran relations. It means I'll work from this station instead of the home world. I'll have responsibilities and meetings and all the boring political work I've always done. But I'll be here. With you. What about your family? They'll visit. My sister Sureen is already planning a trip. She wants to meet you. Fair warning, she's very protective of me. I'll survive. My brothers might be more difficult. They don't understand why I chose you. That's okay. I don't fully understand it either. You could have anyone in the galaxy. I don't want anyone in the galaxy. I want the man who fixed my translator and saved my life with an emergency button. The man who makes terrible jokes and eats too many noodles. The man who sees me as just Hana. Taewan kissed her forehead. Just Hana is my favorite person. They talked late into the night, making plans for their future. Taewan would keep working as a mechanic. Hana would handle her diplomatic work. They would stay in the small apartment because it was theirs, and they loved it. They would face whatever difficulties came together. There will be people who oppose this, Hana warned, who think we shouldn't be together. Let them think what they want. We know the truth. And what truth is that? That love is stronger than prejudice. That connection is more important than status. That sometimes the best things happen by accident. You're getting philosophical in your old age. I learned from the best. 1 year after their accidental matching, they held a real wedding ceremony. Not the quick, awkward legal binding they had done before. A real celebration with real vows. Dae-hyun stood as best man, proud and happy. Princess Su-rin served as maid of honor, having decided that Taewan was acceptable after testing him thoroughly. Friends from both worlds attended. Mrs. Pak from the noodle shop brought food. Taewan's old poker friends flew up from Earth. Veleran officials and human diplomats filled the venue, watching as two people from different worlds promised to share one life. When it came time for vows, Taewan spoke from his heart. Hana, when we met, I thought you were a problem I had to solve, a complicated situation I had to survive, but you became the best thing that ever happened to me. You taught me that being brave means letting people in, that being happy means taking risks, that loving someone means choosing them every day, not just once. Hana's vows were in her own language first, then translated. Taewan, you gave me the greatest gift anyone has ever given me. You gave me choice. You let me be myself without expectations or requirements. You loved me when I was difficult and patient when I was stubborn. You make me laugh when I want to be serious. You make me brave when I want to be safe. I choose you today, and I will choose you tomorrow and every day after. The priest pronounced them married again. This time, it meant something different. This time, it was real in ways that legal contracts could never capture. At the reception, Taewan found himself standing with Dae-hyun, watching Hana talk with guests. You did well, Dae-hyun said quietly. I wasn't sure about you at first. A mechanic with no training, no preparation for any of this. But you proved me wrong. I just loved her. That's not difficult. Loving her was easy, keeping her safe, supporting her responsibilities, accepting the complications of her life while maintaining your own identity. That's the difficult part, and you've done it well. We're just getting started. There will be harder times ahead. Probably, but you'll face them together. That makes all the difference. 5 years later, Tae-won and Hana sat in their apartment, now expanded to include an extra room. In that room, their daughter Ji-hai slept peacefully. She had her mother's luminescent blue skin and her father's dark hair. She had her mother's intelligence and her father's practical nature. She was the most beautiful thing either of them had ever seen. She's perfect, Hana whispered, watching their daughter sleep. She got that from you, Tae-won replied. She got your stubbornness. That's called determination, when it's a positive trait. They stood together in the doorway, arms around each other. The apartment was still small. Tae-won still worked as a mechanic, though he had been promoted several times. Hana managed cultural exchange programs between Earth and the Valoran Empire. Their lives were full and complicated and sometimes exhausting, but they were happy. They had built something real from a random computer error. They had proven that love could bridge any distance, any difference, any obstacle. Do you ever think about that day? Hana asked. When you filled out the lottery form? Sometimes. I think about how I just clicked random boxes because I didn't care. Fate has a strange sense of humor. Fate, or a badly programmed database. Does it matter which? Tae-won thought about it. No, what matters is what we did with it. We could have just survived the year and walked away. Instead, we built this. He gestured around the apartment, at their sleeping daughter, at the life they had created together. Yes, Hana agreed. We built this. News organizations across the galaxy had covered their story. They had become symbols of human-alien cooperation. Other mixed-species couples cited them as inspiration. The Cultural Exchange Act had been passed partly because of their marriage, allowing more people to choose love across species lines. But Tae-won and Hana rarely thought about their larger impact. They were too busy living their lives, raising their daughter, dealing with daily challenges and daily joys. When journalists asked Tae-won about their story, he always said the same thing. I was asked to choose a wife, and I selected someone at random. But it turned out she was an alien princess, and she became the love of my life. Not because we were matched by a system, not because we were forced together, but because we chose each other. Every day we keep choosing each other. That's what makes it real. In the end, that was all that mattered. Not the circumstances that brought them together, not the obstacles they had to overcome. Just the choice to keep choosing each other, day after day, year after year. It was a simple truth. But simple truths were often the most powerful ones. And in a galaxy full of complicated politics and ancient prejudices and impossible distances, sometimes all you needed was one simple truth to change everything.